This is Before the Pitch, where you can love New York baseball no matter what shade of blue you are wearing. And we are bringing in a friend who wears a different shade of blue than either the Yankees or the Mets. This is the kind of blue that some may say needs to open their eyes a little bit. I'm going to introduce to you guys a very good friend of mine from high school. His name is James Carrano. He has been to the MLB Umpires School, and he is here today to share this awesome experience with you guys. This is some really cool information you're not going to really find anywhere else. So this is going to be a great video to listen to. And that is coming to you right now before the pitch. James, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Scott. How you doing?
I am fantastic. And before we start, I do have to say that so I've had James as an umpire either for both the kids that I coach and for my own team that I play for. And I do have to say what a difference between you and these other umpires for so many ways. Not only for the consistency and the quality of the umpiring, the way you carry yourself is different. And you really emphasize professionalism and presentability. And I think that's a good place to start. So let's talk about when you went to the place, and then just take it from there. Just take us on all an adventure for this, because there's just so many things to talk about. It's hard to find one place to start, so I'll let you take care of this.
All right. Well, I guess I'll kind of start from the beginning. So I started umpiring little kids games at my local little league when I was about probably 10 years old. We'd be doing probably 8 and under games for like $10 and a hot dog each game. Very very basic stuff. It was a pitching machine. You'd be lucky if you saw a walk, because it was all in the same spot every single time. So it started off very very simply, and when I got into high school and stuff like that, I started to do older kids games. You do your 12U, 13U, stuff like that. But they asked me what I wanted to do when I got older, when I got into high school, guidance counselor, stuff like that. And I thought about it, and of course there's a lot of different paths to go down, but I thought to myself, I'm like, well, you know what? I wasn't that good at baseball. I really, I played little league and stuff like that, but umpiring was really cool. And it was really cool to see the game from a different point of view, and from obviously a different position on the field. And, I thought, well, it'd be pretty cool to see if we can pursue that and maybe make that, a career, and see where that takes us. So, I did some research and stuff like that, and I found that there was a couple, major league sort of endorsed schools in the U.S. There are really not anywhere else. And I thought to myself, well, okay, after high school and college, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. But in the meantime, let's work on, working our way up and trying to do bigger and better games, and see if we can sort of get prepared for this kind of thing. So, after I got into college, my freshman year of college, I started doing high school games and tournament games in the Connecticut area and stuff like that with my local association. I was with them for probably 4 or 5 years until I was done with college, and I decided to sign up for the Wendelstedt Umpire School, which is a major league endorsed camp. It's accredited and all that stuff with the state of Florida. It's basically run for about a month every year, from the beginning of January to the beginning of February in Daytona Beach. So it's about 5-6 weeks. You stay in a hotel near their complex of fields. You pretty much spend, I would say, about 7 or 8 hours every single day, with the exception of Sundays. That's our day off. So 7, 8 hours on the field and in the classroom, reading every single line in the rule book, learning basically any situation that could possibly come up on the field, learning where to be, how to call it, what do you say, what don't you say to certain players or coaches, whatever. And basically it's to prepare you for a spot in professional baseball. Now, the people who are lucky enough to be the top, 20 performers in the class after this month is over, they get offered a spot in usually like the lowest of the low minor league. So instructional league, rookie league, stuff like that. Unfortunately, I was not one of the people selected. But it takes probably 2-3 years of going through this class to really be considered for this kind of thing. So it was an incredible experience. It was something that I've, like I said, since the beginning of high school that I've really wanted to try, and I was lucky enough to do so. And it was really I don't know if I'd say life changing, but in terms of that profession, it was definitely career changing. That's for sure. And I would definitely recommend it to anybody even close to being interested in that kind of thing, because it really gives you a different perspective. Even if you're already in the field, I guess you would say, it gives you a different outlook on, how to do that sort of job as compared to learning from a local umpire or something like that. It was incredible. So
So I want you to take me through a day in being at the school. From the moment you wake up, what happens then? Once you shower, get dressed, all that good stuff.
yeah, so basically the day starts at 9 o'clock. We would go from the hotel to the field complex. There was a group of, I want to say, well, we used 3 fields, but there was a group of probably like, I don't know, 10 or 15 or so. It was a huge complex. The town, the town of Ormond Beach runs the complex, but the umpire school uses 3 of the fields. So we get to the classroom at 9. They take roll call. You have to, say here. It's kind of like almost like a little militaristic in a way, but roll calls at 9. They get through all 100 names every single day, and then they say, okay, open your rule books to rule 5.6, page 33, and they start reading. And basically, you make your notes. They talk about, they sort of analyze the rule book, talk about in different interpretations of rules, what they mean, and stuff like that. Um, we watched some video of major league calls and stuff like that happening. The guys that were teaching the class are minor and major league umpires. So it was very intense classroom stuff. So we do that for about probably 2.5 hours. Then after that, they give us about 15 minutes. We head out to the fields, which are about probably a little bit less than a quarter mile away from the classroom. We head out there. We do some stretching in a big like parade block of guys. So it's probably like 20 guys wide and about another 10 or 15 deep. So it's a huge block. We do stretching. We would practice our safes and outs calls, our balls and strikes, fairest fouls, time, everything like that. And after that, we would typically we would start a drill. We'd probably do that for about an hour or so, and then break for lunch around 1 o'clock or so. And then after about half hour of lunch break, we would get back onto the field until about probably 4 or 5, where they would then dismiss us back to the hotel until the next morning around 9 o'clock. It was a pretty
Um,
packed day.
so most of your day is spent on a field. Am I correct?
Definitely. Yeah, that's the majority of it.
Cool. So when you talk about interpretations of rules, what are some that maybe immediately come to your mind when I ask what are the rules or wording or anything that generates the most disagreement or controversy, or leaves the most gray area for interpretation? What's something that kind of jumps out in your head when I say that?
I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot that you kind of really have to use good judgment when you see some of these things happen on the field. I mean, there's a very famous play that stirs up a lot of debate every time it's shown, which is which has to do with the infield fly rule. And I think it's the Braves in, I can't even remember what year it is. And maybe it's like '04 or '96, something like that. There's a very famous Braves and Cardinals playoff game where the ball was popped up to short left field and the shortstop was underneath it, and they called infield fly. The left field umpire called infield fly. And I remember we actually watched this video and we talked about the infield fly in very deep discussion. And, even though these major league and minor league umpires are describing to us, actually, the guy who made the call was actually in the classroom. He was describing to us what was going through his mind and why he thought that was the correct call there. And even still, there were students that kind of said, I don't think he's right on that. But, it really all depends on your judgment, how you really understand the meaning of these certain rules. It's not always black and white. Sometimes there is a little gray area in some of them. But I think that one is one of the ones that definitely comes to mind. you have to use a lot of good judgment with infield flies. It's crazy.
I think I even know what infield fly play we're talking about. For some reason, some things are kind of coming to my head. It was I believe between the shortstop and left field. Am I correct?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. This sounds very very familiar. Um, let's talk about the infield fly rule because that's one that even I know when I'm coaching.
Okay.
There's always a problem with the infield fly rule. I umpired once when I was in high school, like what you did, and the reason why I stopped is because I got yelled at for a coach on an 8-year-old team about the infield fly rule. So I have a particular bone to pick with the infield fly rule.
It's
Um,
confusing.
well, here's the this one shouldn't have been confusing. It never left the infield grass.
Ah, well,
Oh wait, yo, you were at that game.
I
You were the
think you know
plate
what
umpire.
that was kind of coming back to my mind when you're describing that. I'm like, man, I kind of think I was working with you with that
Yeah,
game.
I forgot. Yeah, we were together that game. Oh my god, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah, and
completely forgot
I
about
think
that.
we didn't call it, and we had to kind of work out where we should put the runners because it was an infield fly.
Yeah, so I called it and nobody heard me.
Right. Oh, okay.
That's what
Yeah.
happened. I said infield fly, nobody heard me, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I still called it. What do I do?
Yep. Yep. I mean, it happens. It happens.
Um,
Um.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
let's talk about the infield fly, at least as far as it extends to the outfield. I think there's a lot of listeners who would really appreciate a little bit some sort of clarity
Okay.
as to why the infield fly extends to the outfield.
Sure. So the infield fly is basically a basic understanding of it is to prevent an easy double play from being turned. Now, if you ask me, there are certain situations that probably should be called an infield fly that are not. But if so, basically the setup is it's first and second or first, second, and third with less than 2 outs because that's the situations that you can turn a double play. My opinion, it should be first base only as well because then again, you can turn an easy double play in that case, but that's besides the point. So first and second are bases loaded with less than 2 outs. Now, if the ball is popped up in the infield in fair territory, and it's not a bunt cannot be an infield fly, just FYI. And the infielder and the umpire's judgment can catch it with ordinary effort, it can be called an infield fly or should be called an infield fly. Um, so yeah, and there's technically no limit as to where the infielder can be when he makes this catch. You know, basically, I mean, like I said, it's supposed to prevent an easy double play, but the book says that the infielder has to make the catch with ordinary effort. So, you know, if it's popped up straight up to the shortstop and he's standing underneath it to make the catch with his glove up, clearly that's an infield fly, ordinary effort. There's nothing questionable about that. You know, if the ball is in short center field and the shortstop is running and then kind of catches it last second over his shoulder, that's not an infield fly because he didn't catch it with ordinary effort. He really had to make a run to go get it. That's not ordinary. So, but there's other certain extreme scenarios like the one we were describing before where you could really be in short left field or maybe even at the fence and if you can kind of get away with that and call an infield fly because you could, hypothetically speaking, if the ball is popped up 1,000 feet in the air, you could get over to left field and camp underneath it before you make the catch. And I think that's a tough sell for an umpire to call an infield fly on that, but according to the book, you could get away with that. So
So
it's
it
yeah.
seems to me like the pivot point is you have to ask yourself, if this drops, can the double play be turned?
Yeah, I mean that's the rationale behind the infield fly. Really, what I try to do on the field is I try to say to myself, "Is that ordinary? Okay, yes, it is. Infield fly.
Okay.
You know, is that not ordinary? No, okay, I'm not going to call that.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, so
At
that's
what point do you have to call infield fly? I assume you can't wait until he catches or drops it. It has to be made at some point in the air. Am I correct?
yeah, pretty much. You know, I was taught to not really look at the ball when it's in flight. So
Oh,
I
really?
yeah, that's the thing. You should be looking at the fielders, not really up at the ball, because if you're looking up, you're gonna miss something going on down here. So the
Oh,
fielders will tell you where the ball is. Just look at them. That's all you have to do. So what I try to do is, I mean, really, if the ball is at its apex or if it's on its way down and the fielder is settling in to make the catch, that's when you probably should call it. Because if you call it too early, um, you could mess that up. Because the fielders they're not camped underneath it when it's just coming off the bat. They're probably still on their way to the ball. So you want to make sure that you have the right judgment before you call it. So I would say apex or a little bit lower is where you should probably make that call.
let's shift gears to probably the grayest area the umpire has to worry about, and the one that Monday morning coaches like to talk about the most on Twitter and on the internet.
I think I could probably guess what this would be.
It's the
But
strike zone.
oh, okay, okay. I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna say check swings because that's
Oh,
another one. That's another one.
whoa. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Let's talk about the. Okay.
We could do
Okay.
both. Why not
Let's go.
both?
Yeah, we did. Those could both probably be linked together. Okay. Talk about the check swing and talk about the strike zone. Why is it that
Mhm.
everyone has a problem with the strike zone?
Oh, geez. You know what? I think we should start by saying that I think that K box thing that they show now on all these different networks, I think that is the biggest load of garbage that they could ever do.
Really?
Because, well, yeah, I think so. I think so. Because honestly, it's not. I don't think it's accurate. And maybe that's an unpopular opinion or something like that, but I don't think it is. Because if you watch, some of these guys get up to bat, you got an Altuve compared to a Judge or something like that. That box stays the same height. It doesn't really change a whole lot. And if you really look at some of these games, you can see that the top of the zone is like at their like belly button or even lower. That's not where the top of the strike zone is. I mean, you may not know, but the top of the strike zone is technically halfway between the batter's shoulders and his waistline. So that's kind of like the bottom of your chest in a way.
Mm.
And if you watch a lot of these games, that K zone is not at the middle of his chest.
No, it's definitely not.
So I don't know. I don't think that's really helped a whole lot. And I think I mean, I don't know. I'm not inside a major league clubhouse, but I think that if a guy gets rung up on strike three, he goes down into the tunnel and sees that it was at the above that K box thing, he's gonna be mad. But it might have been a strike in all reality. It might have been. So I don't think that's helped a whole lot, but that might be an unpopular opinion.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, when we talk about the idea that pitchers throw 90 plus miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be slower, or it could be faster, or it could move, or it could not move.
It's a possibility.
You are guessing just like the hitter's guessing.
Yeah.
How
It's
are you preparing? Do they teach you to prepare for a pitch?
so not well, yes and no, I guess. The most I think I got out of that when in terms of preparing for a pitch or whatever would be to really, and that sounds cliche, but to keep your eye on the ball. And I find myself even today, I find myself calling pitches without actually watching the ball all the way into the mitt. And that's what they taught us to do down there. And of course, bad habits happen. But you're supposed to watch the ball all the way from the pitcher's hand as soon as he releases it, all the way down into the catcher's mitt. So even if you're taking your eye off the pitcher, that's okay because you're following the ball all the way in. And if that's the case, you should be able to see the movement, the speed, whatever, that kind of thing. And the other side to that is also to use good timing too. Because if you think about it as an umpire, nothing really happens on the field. No ruling is made until you make the ruling. Yeah, I mean, that's your entire job. So if the pitch comes in and you're watching all the way into the catcher's mitt and you sit there for a second, you say, that was a good pitch. Let's call that a strike. Strike one, and then you make your call. That's perfectly fine. You could take a couple seconds to make that call. Now, you don't want to be too quick. You don't want to be too slow either. You got to find that kind of happy medium. But you have to, really process what you saw and try to, understand that thought or that call before you actually call it.
Now
Otherwise, you're gonna mess it up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's talk about the catcher framing because framing is. I always kind of I teach it to my kids as you have to kind of lie to the umpire a little bit because if it comes
Mhm.
down to him looking at your glove, you want to make sure that looks presentable if he's second guessing it. Another umpire, a local umpire who you would know, who
Mhm.
is a longtime umpire, he said this quote to me, and I want to know if you agree or disagree because it's something that I had never thought about.
Okay.
He says, if I'm doing my job correctly, it doesn't matter where the catcher's catching the ball. Do you agree or do you
That's interesting.
disagree?
That's interesting. If I'm doing my job correctly, it doesn't matter where he catches it. Well, I guess my sort of understanding of that would be if I'm calling the strike zone, he could catch it below the strike zone, but as long as it passed through, it's still a strike. I think that's what that means.
Okay.
I don't I don't know for sure.
That's kind of
Um,
what I was referring to. So I'll give you the context
yeah.
of him saying that was I
Okay,
asked him
sure.
and I said, how do I get these kids? This is a local teacher who teaches at one of the schools that I coach at. And I said, what can I tell my catchers to do to help you out the most and to make it the most clear? And that's when he kind of came up with that. So he's referring
Okay.
to he's not paying attention to the catcher's glove at all, I believe. Are
Right.
you looking at the catcher's glove? And this kind of comes down to the age old question. Now, a lot of parents are probably going to ask: is it where it passes or is it where it's caught?
It is where it crosses the plate. And it's
Okay,
the whole plate. It's not the front edge of the plate, and it's not the back point of the plate. It's the entire plate. So the
okay.
strike zone is really a 3D sort of thing, and the ball needs to pass through some portion of that. Um, in terms of the catcher's mitt, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to it's tough to call some strikes that should be strikes in a way, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
Mm, yeah.
So, if let's say the pitcher throws this nasty curveball, right? And you see it coming in, you keep your eye on the ball the entire way, of course. So you see the ball coming in, and it passed through the strike zone. Like it passed through that lower portion of it. But then the catcher goes down for a block and the ball bounces away. But it passed through the strike zone. And if you now there's two different ways, and there's two different approaches to this too. And I've seen guys who do both. Who some guys will not call that pitch a strike because how could you possibly? It bounced away from the catcher. You can't possibly call it a strike. That's what some people say. And then other people say, well, yeah, but it passed through the zone. I have to. But then they hear a bunch of crap from parents and coaches because look where the catcher caught it. You know, um, I don't know. My approach to that is if it looks like it crossed through, I'm gonna call it a strike.
Mhm.
Um, it may not look good, but at the end of the day, I mean that's what the book says. That's kind of what you have to do. There's
How
really not a
much of the
whole lot.
ball has to go through the zone in order for it to qualify as passing through the zone?
In a technical sense, it could be the red stitch passes through. It could be a
Oh,
strike. As
wow.
long as some part of the ball crosses through some part of the zone, it's a strike. Now, for a human to see something like that, it's not going to happen. But if we end up bringing these robots in someday, that's a possibility, and people will
Now
not like
we've
it.
seen video evidence of these robots getting used in like the Atlantic League, and some
Mhm.
crazy calls that are coming up. And
Oh yeah,
ironically, it has made couple calls even worse.
yeah,
And it almost cripples the umpire because these guys are yelling at the umpire and he's kind of going like this. He's
yeah.
like, I can't do anything about this.
It's not
So,
me.
so
Yeah,
what is your opinion on not just your opinion on the robot other opinions that you are hearing that are circulating, or specifically what conversations have you had about the robot and you can link in instant replay into the same kind of conversation.
sure.
To what extent was that being discussed at MLB, the school?
So from what I gather from a lot of people, especially locally, is that people can't stand the idea. I mean, it's been a thing. Just the human element, that whole idea, has been a thing in the game for so long that people typically say, "Let's just keep it that way. It is what it is." My opinion is it kind of goes along with what we were just talking about, where at least right now, the technology is not even close to being able to um, effectively do that. There's actually reports last year in the Atlantic League of that robotic strike zone just completely breaking down during the game.
Oh wow.
Like they would have to turn it off because it wasn't working properly. So there would
Wow.
be some innings where it was called robotically, and then some innings where the human was doing it because that system stopped working.
Wow.
So it's not there yet. I don't think it's a good idea to push it when it's not developed fully. But also, I personally think that it changes the game in a way that I don't think we want. So, we were just talking about the strike zone and how if any part of the ball crosses any part of the plate, it's a strike. And I think that good pitchers in the MLB and stuff like that are going to use that to their advantage, and they're going to figure out how to get that curveball or that sinker or whatever to just barely tip that bottom of the strike zone, and it's going to completely drop off the table. Catcher's not going to catch it, and the umpire's going to ring him up on strike three because technically it's a strike if it passes through. So I think at the end of the day, people are going to hate it. They're going to think they like it, but once they get it, they're not going to like it.
Mm.
So I personally, I just say keep it the way it is. It's been rough sometimes with wrong calls and stuff like that, but I'll take that over a different game. To be honest with you, I like the game the way it is.
Now, is there
Yeah.
a punishment for an overturned call, like from an umpire's perspective? Like, do they keep track of how many times something's challenged and you get it wrong?
Yeah. So in the MLB, they do get evaluated regularly. At least on the bases and stuff like that. In terms of overturned plays, they do keep record of that kind of thing. But definitely, where it really comes into play is on the plate. Balls and strikes and stuff like that. After I believe it's after every game you do on the plate, you get sort of like an evaluation sheet almost in a way, which shows your sort of percentage, what you got right, what you got wrong. And I believe there's also video that you can look at if you're one of those guys to see, which ones you probably need work on. I could be wrong about that, but I've heard that before in a few different places. Um, so yeah, I mean there's sort of evaluations and stuff like that, especially for the minor league guys who are trying to work their way up to the majors. The guys in the majors already, it's pretty tough to sort of get rid of them. That doesn't really happen a whole lot. They do have a pretty solid union, so it's not just like you miss one call, you're fired. It's not really, it doesn't work like that. But there is evaluations, there is sort of an accountability, even though the common fan doesn't really typically see that kind of thing. But there is sort of a rating system that does exist.
So, given that like a rating system does exist, how does Angel Hernandez and Joe West keep their jobs?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, like, I don't know. It sort of is what it is. I mean, like I said, they do have a good union, I think. So I think that probably plays a part in it. I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of Joe West, I don't really know much about Angel, but Joe West, I actually did see. It was a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. There was he had a World Series game or a ALCS game, something like that, and they said, I mean, for what it's worth, they said he missed like two pitches the entire game, and maybe some games he misses more, some games he might miss less, whatever. But I looked at that percentage and I'm like, that's pretty good. I mean, you missed two pitches the entire game out of what, 200? That's not bad. So I don't know. I mean, I think everyone has some missed calls and stuff like that. I mean, maybe some people have a little bit more than others. But I don't know. It's not very common. You see guys packing their bags and going home. So I don't really know what constitutes that to happen, but apparently not a few missed calls. That's for sure.
So let's backtrack a little bit to something we began to go down the path of. Let's talk about that check swing because you brought that up and that opened up a whole new light for that. So expand on that, both from a plate umpire and the field umpire. Expand on the check swing.
Okay, so that's I think a part of the game that not many people understand. And if you ask people, what a check swing is, you're going to get 15 different answers. Some people will say, oh, well, it's if the bat head crosses the plate, it's a strike. And some people will say, oh, well, if the wrists break, it's a strike. Or some people will say, oh, well, if he turned his hips, it must be a strike. No, no, no. There's actually technically there's really no criteria in the rule book for what a check swing is. It's I guess technically speaking, it's if the umpire thinks in his judgment that the batter made an attempt to swing. So what criteria do these guys have that makes them decide that? I guess it could be different for everybody. Um, I guess for me personally, you kind of have to see it to decide it. But I mean, if he's coming all the way forward and he goes out in front of the plate, for me, that's more than likely an attempt to swing. I mean, if he's trying to get out of the way of the pitch and it kind of comes around a little bit, I mean, if he's trying to get away, I don't think he's making an attempt. So it's I don't know. You can go back and forth with coaches and players for years on this subject, but that's technically the way to look at it. Now, as a plate umpire and base umpire, it's very different. So the plate guy is looking at, first of all, the location of the pitch. Secondly, did he swing? Third, did the pitcher balk on that? Or it's all, there's a lot of different things to watch as the plate guy. The base guy, you're really looking to see if the runner is stealing, and then if the batter made contact, and if he didn't, well, did he swing? So there's a little bit less to look at there, I guess. And I don't know. I think for me personally, when I'm the plate guy and a guy checks his swing, I mean, unless it's obvious, I'm probably not going to say that he went around, because I personally, I feel like it's a bad angle behind the plate. I feel like my base guy down the first base line, or maybe even on the first base side of the pitcher's mound, I feel like he might have a better view than I did behind the plate. So unless it's obvious, I'll probably say he didn't go, and then I'll ask my base guy, if requested, did he swing? So I don't know. It's a tough subject, and like I said, we could go on for years debating with coaches and players what is and what isn't a swing. But at the end of the day, it's really about what you think happened.
So two more topics before we start wrapping up. Let's talk about that balk really quick. Who's looking for the balk? Because I could say, even as a coach, I don't even pick up on balks, whether it's my team or the other team, because I'm thinking and looking at a gazillion other things. Even when I'm looking directly at the pitcher, I am not looking for a balk, and I feel like if I'm not looking for a balk, I will not find a balk. So tell me the process of finding the balk, and are you looking for it? Do you just hope you catch it? Expand.
Yeah. So in terms of whose responsibility it is, it could be anybody who sees it. Whether it's the plate guy, the base guy, it doesn't matter. If you see it, you call it, and that's it. Whether you look for it or not, I mean, I guess you kind of do, because you want to make sure you get it if it happens. You don't want it to go ignore or ignore the fact that it happened or whatever. I know for me, I guess, well, the way I was taught, at least, is that your eye is supposed to always be on the ball. The guy who has the ball, that's where your eyes are. So whether you're the plate guy or the base guy, if the pitcher has the ball on the mound, you should be looking at him. And maybe it's just from doing it for so long or whatever, but you kind of know sort of what to look for. And I guess depending on what age you're doing, you sort of know what to sort of let kind of go by, because they may not know what they're doing. But for me, if I'm on the bases, especially for this year, because we're behind first base and behind the pitcher's mound, it's a little bit different. For me, I'm really watching on the lefty pitchers stepping towards first. Did he go too far towards the plate, or did he go towards first base? Because if he goes too far towards the plate and throws to first, that's a balk, because he went towards the plate and threw to first. He's deceiving the runner. So you kind of know to look for things like that. You know to look for things like if he's too quick on his set, if he doesn't really set all the way and just goes to the plate. Um, Sometimes you'll see, actually, there's a couple pretty common ones. You'll see, the guy will take his signs. He's kind of bent over towards the plate, taking his signs, and he kind of comes up and he stops because he maybe he forgot something. He goes to look back down. Well, it's a balk because you already kind of started to come up here, so you can't stop. Um, and the other thing that I've seen a lot is when guys go to step off the mound to go pick off towards a base, they move their hand like they're set. They move their hands before they step off the mound, which would be a balk. You have to step off first. So maybe it's just doing it so long, whatever. But you just kind of know what to look for. And I think when your eyes are already on the pitcher as it is, like they should be, um, you just catch it when it comes up. You know, sort of
Now,
second nature, I guess.
now the final question:
Mhm.
a parent or a coach does not like your call you made. What are the chances you even think for a second to change it?
Um, Not even a little. I mean, well, especially for a parent, not even a little. I mean, you know what? You hear what they say. Of course, you hear what they say. You're on the field, but you can't pay attention to parents, and that's the one thing that a lot of new guys have trouble with because they get to them. It's tough. For a coach, I mean, I don't know if there is doubt in my mind that I may have gotten it wrong. Depending on the situation, of course. If there's doubt in my mind, maybe I will go check with my partner if I do feel like I need help on that. Um, but if he's just going to yell at me because he thought that the runner beat the throw to first and I called him out, I'm not going to pay attention to you, dude. I mean, it's not going to happen. Um, I think it also depends on how you come across too. So, if it's between innings and I'm going to get a drink of water or something like that, and a coach comes to me and he goes, "Hey, I don't know. I really thought he beat the throw on that." I'd say, "Okay, well, that's fine, but I don't think so. I disagree." But if he's going to come out screaming at me, we're going to have a different result. So it depends on how you conduct yourself and stuff like that. But that's just part of again, just using good judgment, just kind of figuring out what is your limit, what are you going to deal with, and what aren't you going to deal with. So it's all
Perfect.
part of the fun.
Perfect. Hey, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on our show, as always. This is the second time you've been on our show. First time was a few,
Sure.
I think it was like a year ago.
Yeah,
Um,
just about. Yeah.
we were just getting started, and we have just passed 700 followers on Twitter, so we're really excited about
Wow.
that. So hopefully we can use this to have a really good outreach, because I think there is so much to learn from the umpire, because that tends to be it tends to be the punching bag in baseball. Um, I believe,
Seems like
and I am a part of that. I am so a part of that. Um, uh,
it
uh,
happens.
it is, but it's like someone has to be the bad guy. It's always going to be the guy in charge, even when he's right. It's just there's just always something that bothers. And I do think that is a perspective that people really need to start considering, especially a perspective we need to start teaching kids.
Yeah.
When we talk about this, you talk about you're standing behind the plate. A lot of kids I coach that come back, coach, that was high. I know it was high because I'm standing adjacent to you.
Hmm.
He has to stand back there. He's having trouble determining depth as to when it passes because he's all the way over there. And I tell him, you have to understand what he's looking at, because he's looking at something different than what you are. And you could
Right.
be wrong. And you could be
Possible.
wrong. I tell the
Yeah.
kids that, like, you could be wrong. He could be totally right. You have to go off of him now.
Right.
So I think there needs to be a much bigger push for youth sports to have more respect and more faith in officials, not just baseball, but like all of youth sports officiating in general. There needs to be more
Definitely.
more of a respect and more of a faith into what they're doing. I think it becomes the cool thing to do, to go yelling and screaming. And as cool as Aaron Boone is coming out, my guys are effing savages in the box. He stands there and he crouches. It does a whole bunch of things that no one else would get away with. And you can't
Absolutely.
help but wonder if those umpires are standing here like, it's TV. It's for entertainment. You gotta let him keep going.
It's true. It's true. But I mean, I think I think more people have to try it, especially at the younger age, like I did when I was 10 years old. I think you got to try it. And I think if you're one of those people who like to yell at us or whatever, that's fine. But you should try it yourself. And I think that when people start yelling at you, I think that you'll have a much different outlook on certain things because it's not fun. It's not fun getting yelled at. And I think that if you're put into that situation, you may understand a little bit more what it's like. It's not fun.
Where can people find you on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter. It's at James Carrano. Instagram, I guess, probably same thing. I don't check it that often. Probably Twitter, best thing. Also, the Umpire School is it's the Wendelstedt Umpire School. You can find them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, anything, whatever you got, they're on there too. It's pretty good stuff. They have a lot of educational things. I would definitely, drop them a follow if you're a baseball fan. It's a good time. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope to have you on real soon. Anytime you want to come on, honest to God, anything time you got something you got to say about the Yankees or baseball, whatever, we are looking very forward to, over the course of the season, you kind of getting involved. Hopefully we can have more interaction with you as far as certain calls, especially questionable ones. I think we're going to start doing that, is finding questionable calls and
Cool.
sending them over to be like, what do you think? Yes or no? Not so much if you think he's out or safe, but like talk through what this umpire is thinking. I think that's a very valuable thing. It's very easy for us to say, it's right in front of you. How'd you miss it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, definitely. Let me know. I mean, there's so much that happens in all these games, especially it's just crazy this year or whatnot. But yeah, let me know. I mean, I would love to come on and talk about some crazy situations and some different interpretations and stuff like that. It's a great time. So. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Awesome. Absolutely. Cool. This has been Before the Pitch, and where you can love New York baseball no matter what shade of blue you are wearing. I am Sky. We talk baseball because ESPN doesn't, though they kind of started doing it recently.